Hello everyone and welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Tamisha, a multi-passionate artist. If you have been watching this series, thank you. Don't forget to like, don't forget to comment. Also remember to subscribe so you know every time I post. Right now I'm posting leading up to my 30th birthday, kind of reflecting on what I've been through, what's been going on in my life, and how I feel about it now. One of the main reasons I decided to do this was because I love photography and I really want to get into videography. So I figured having a YouTube channel with also growing my women's focused space is a really good way for me to put myself out there and showcase my talents. I crochet, I draw, I do all kinds of stuff. If you'd like to follow me, I have the same handle on every platform: Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, all of it. Same exact. Follow me.
It's your birthday. It's your birthday. It's your birthday. It's your birthday.
Today, we're going to be talking about my employment at my local sheriff's office. I got hired a little bit after my 21st birthday and worked there for about 3 years. In that 3 years of time, I saved someone's life. I witnessed someone smear poop on the glass. I witnessed federal inmates getting very, very upset and flooding the pod. This happened my very first day. I made some cool friends along the way. Now that I'm about to be 30, I'm reflecting on how it was working in that environment, what it was like. I did do a little Q&A on Facebook, so most of what I'm answering is coming from there. If there is anything you can think of, please drop it below. Remember to subscribe because that helps us build this community. We are trying to build a women's focused community with the resources, support, and celebration of women. So if you love that, give me a follow. That is what I do. What type of interaction did I have with the inmates? It was more like being in a high school than anything. Like, I was the teacher and they were the students, and even though they were older than me, it's like having a bunch of crazy kids that you have to keep in line, make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do. They're going to get mad at you sometimes, they're going to throw tantrums sometimes, but that just kind of is how it is. Obviously, it can get very dangerous. Ways to avoid that is to treat them like human beings. A lot of the times when people would have issues of people trying to fight them or things like that, there would be the inmate would either be intoxicated or the officer would kind of be like pushing their buttons. So to, kind of avoid that and have a smooth shift, you want to not poke the bear. The next question I got was, what was the daily routine? And that's pretty simple. It's breakfast in the morning. Usually if they're not on a 23-1, which is where they lock down 23 hours, and they come out 1 hour. If they're not on the 23-1, then they will come out in the morning. I think they would get to come out at like 7:30, and then they would have breakfast, lunch, just like lunchtime, dinner time. Sometimes they would need to meet with lawyers. Sometimes they would go outside. I'll talk a little bit more about that, but overall, you eat in the morning, you eat in the afternoon, you eat at night. For us, we had to do 2 rounds per hour the whole shift. It was 12 hours, so we would get there at 6, leave at 6. If you came in, morning or night, you're still getting there at 6, leaving at 6. I worked night shift my first 2 years, and then the last year I worked days, and it was really just the same. You come in, and if it's day shift, you come in, they're about to eat breakfast. If it's night shift, you come in, they're about to eat dinner, and then they lock down at like 9 or 10. The next question is how I handled situations that did escalate. I only really was in one situation where we thought we were going to have to fight, and it was a murderer. So, hopefully I can say that word on here, but yeah, that was like the most intense. And it was really just because someone was messing with him. Like I said, for the most part, they'll be chill if you're chill. But if you come in with the mindset of like, I'm an officer and I'm going to, bulldoze these people and they're beneath me, you're going to find yourself in a situation. But overall, I didn't get into escalated situations. If someone was maybe intoxicated or maybe not cooperating. Really, with the women, the only time that things would be kind of intense would be with the strip search. And that really makes sense because I don't want to do it. You don't want to do it. it's really uncomfortable. Sometimes, they might be womping, saying that you enjoy it. It's very weird. Sometimes they cry. It's just not good. It's not a fun experience, but it is necessary if you don't have like the body scanner, which I think they do have it now. I knew officers that had got into it with other women inmates, but it was mainly kind of with the men, and it wasn't a lot, but it would depend on who was in the administration at that time. Now, I will say, one time when I first started, I had that mentality of like, I'm an officer, y'all are in jail. And someone almost ripped my wig off. They almost ripped my wig off, and I didn't know until I seen it on camera. So yeah, going in there, which, I mean, I was 21. Going in there with like this, like, I don't recommend. I do not recommend it. The next question is, what was scheduled as far as food, serving, commissary, and mail? I kind of already went over food. It's just like morning, noon, night. And if you got commissary, you got that 1 day a week, and we would have to like bring in, well, they would come in these like big bins, and we would have to like separate it all, stand there while they get their stuff, make sure nobody else grabs their stuff. A big deal, but it's just part of the job, I guess. As far as mail, whenever it would get delivered, we would have to go through it, log it. They would get that whenever we would make our rounds. We would just hand it out. As far as now, I don't know. It's been a long time since I worked there, but that's how we did it. Someone also asked, what was their like recreation? Did they have things that they could do besides sit in their cells or be in the pod? They did have a work crew. It was kind of hard to get on, kind of not, just kind of depended. But it wasn't many of them because it wasn't a big jail. So maybe 4 women, 4 men from the pod would get to do that. Most of the time they're writing notes. If they're not writing notes and they're passing notes, it was really annoying. They would do that, or they could go to church. Of course, Bible Belt, little town, they can always go to church. There's always going to be church there. And then they would have sometimes like some encouraging stuff for the women. And that's about it. The next question asked, if someone needs assistance with making a call, knowing their court date, contacting an attorney, or in need of other medical assistance, how would they go about that? So as far as a phone call, they're going to get a phone call when they first get booked into the jail. They don't get the phone call until they're booked because it doesn't give them a number until they're booked. They have to see the magistrate first, and then they should get a printout of their paperwork with a number on it. Sometimes you can call before if they feel like you're going to get out, but for the most part, you had to use these phones. They'd be on the wall. And they are recorded. Everything is recorded. It will tell you it's recorded. It is recorded. And if you think they're not listening, they are. As far as their court date, with those papers that I was telling you about, they would have their court date, their bond, all that is listed on that piece of paper. And as far as contacting an attorney, they can call them on the jail phone, or they can get their family to call them, which is what most of them do because the jail calls are expensive. It's like, I don't know, so much per minute. It's really like the prison system is making a lot of money, okay? Money. I'm going to explain kind of the different situations where they might need medical help and what we would do back then. So say they came in and they were all bloodied up. Maybe they got roughed up a bit by the police officer for fighting back, or otherwise we are going to call 911. Unless they've already been cleared by EMS, we are calling 911 because we don't want them coming in and on our watch, because that's our fault and it's just irresponsible. The second is if they say, hey, I have some rugs and I took those rugs. We're going to be like, okay, we're calling the ambulance right now. What happens when someone ingests drugs is it can rupture. And if it ruptures, they can die immediately. So we have to get them out to the hospital. They cannot stay in holding because then that's where you see people overdose. The last situation that could possibly happen would be they're in their cell and they're having a medical emergency. Maybe they're having like explosive diarrhea. Maybe they lost a tooth in a fight. Who knows? Things happen. they will press the button on their cell. There's boxes, and there's one in the main pod and there's one in each cell. So they will press that button, or if they're maybe unconscious, someone else will press that button and be like, hey, something's going on. Most of the time, if it's an emergency, there will be a lot of buttons being pressed, and you can see this in a thing called a tower. Basically, everything will start lighting up and they'll be like, hey, help us, and then you call for someone to go in there and check it out. The next question is, what type of training did we receive? When I started, I did have to go through like 3 interviews, which I know isn't really the question, but they ask us a bunch of questions. First of all, how I got hired, I have no idea. I was 21, like I said. I'm 5'2", and I was immature as hell. So we kind of just had those interviews, and then they kind of give you like a training thing. They're like, this, watch out for this, don't do that, blah blah blah, and that's about it. We didn't get any pepper spray or anything until we were like begging. We got pepper sprayed twice because we were begging to get something because we had federal inmates. The way that goes is you have your state level and federal level inmates. Those federal inmates were from all over, and they complained because they know that their grievances will be heard. Unfortunately, on the state level, that's not true as much. So they complained a lot. They would act out like most of them have been to prison before. So their acting out is way different than someone in jail that might get out acting out. They're flooding the cells. There is poop on the ground. They're throwing their food out like it's a big deal. Not prepared for that. I'll go back to us being pepper sprayed twice. That's why we wanted the pepper spray. We got pepper sprayed and then ended up going to DO school and getting pepper sprayed and tased, because to carry you have to get pepper sprayed and tased. DO school is really fun. I don't know. I don't think anyone that I went with would watch this, but if they did, they know why I'm laughing. It was really crazy. And we might have gotten pulled over, might not. I don't know. Rumor. But it was fun. And DO school is where we had like the big notebook. We went over different scenarios, legal things, not legal things, self-defense, different things, how we should approach different situations. Yeah. But I will say it doesn't matter like how much you read. It is good for you to do, but it doesn't matter how much you read, how much you watch. Being in there and dealing with it yourself is a whole different situation. The next question I got was, how does the current jail system protect vulnerable people? Seeing as I worked there years ago and just worked there for a short time, this is more of just my observation then and my observation now on the outside. It doesn't really protect them. It depends on where they are, but for the most part, like when it comes to DV situations and different things, I haven't seen them handled very well. And to me, like, the women would be the most vulnerable. They would come in with horrible stories of things that happened to them. They would come in and say they got beat up, have bruises and different things, and they went to jail. The partner did not. So it's just, it was not. But as far as anyone else that was vulnerable, I mean, they're all vulnerable, especially if they're on drugs. I don't think that America realizes how vulnerable the drug addicted population is. Most of them are homeless. Most of them don't have family. And jail is not really a good place for them to be. So I don't even know if there would be, I mean, maybe if there's rehabilitation, but I don't even think there's a way to really help them. And as far as like being exploited, which is what I ask, you make them do work detail and they barely pay them. That is crazy, and there really isn't any rules for it. When it comes to inmates and how they're treated, a lot of people favor police over people that they deem as criminals. So what is done to them isn't really, people don't really think twice about it. They're just like, oh, well, you shouldn't have went to jail. So another question I got was, how is my experience different as a woman versus the men? And I will even add the layer of Black woman because it is different. Overall, of course, people were calling me the N-word. What else are they going to say? it just, as a woman in that space, you're going to be harassed by the inmates. Of course, they're locked up and they like to be freaky. As far as the officers, sometimes they could be kind of weird, but overall it's just like any other workplace. I think maybe dealt with a little bit differently because they don't really care, but it wasn't, I didn't really notice a difference. One thing I kind of remember is when we as women would be like, hey, this is going on, maybe it's not safe. The men would kind of be like, oh, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. And it wasn't fine. So, just the regular misogynistic views are the same there. And I would say worse, but not really, because, in most professions, men run it. So it's about the same. Another question I got was, who determines when an inmate needs medical assistance? That's going to be your sergeant. Usually if there's a medical call, your sergeant and another officer are going anyway, and the sergeant is going to make the call. I was in some situations where I was in charge and had to make that call, but it just depends on the jail and if they have medical people on staff as well, because a medical person would make that call in that case. But when I worked night shift, we didn't have anyone working, so we just had to call. Another question is, were there any inmates that were playing sick or faking it to get out of the pod for commissary, different things like that? Of course, yes, of course, because if you owe somebody or you snitched on somebody, you don't want to be in the pod with them. Whether it's small town, big area, you don't want to, it's bad. One time, this guy faked a seizure twice, and we had eventually took him out the pod, but we had to do a sternum rub, and we had these little things you pop to see if they smell it. He was fine, but we still ended up calling EMS. I think it was one of the times that we didn't have a sergeant, so it was me and some other people who were also early 20s, just trying to figure out what to do. But he ended up getting moved, but he was faking it to get moved. Another time there was a chomo, and if you know what that means, you know what that means. He got moved in with the maximum security people, and they were all, and said they were gonna him. So he said he was gonna himself so that he could get out of the pod. That's all the questions I got. If you have any more questions, feel free to comment them below and I'll do another video. If you have worked in a jail, comment below. Tell me your experiences. Remember that they are human beings first and foremost. They are troubled people, most of them. Yes, some of them have great lives and they're just brats, but a lot of them have been through a lot, and you coming in there with your ego is not going to go well. You're going to get someone else hurt, you're going to get yourself hurt, or they're going to flood the cell and you're going to have to wade in poopy water for 12 hours.
You look so pretty when you tell me that you love me.